All right, what's up, college football fans? Welcome to another QB Spotlight video, and this is our fourth live show that we've done. I think our fourth live show in our week two quarterback preview. So we'll be diving into the quarterback previews of this week. We got 3 or 4 games. We're going to take a look into a little deeper level and talk about the quarterback play, and then we'll try to hit on each game real quick or briefly and talk about the quarterbacks in those games and what you can expect from. This is your first time tuning in. As always, thank you for watching us at the QB Spotlight channel. This is a place where we talk all things quarterbacks. It's a big quarterback hub, so we put out little film breakdowns, quarterback breakdowns, as well as just content like this. We preview stuff, and we also have a podcast where you bring on current and former college and pro quarterbacks, coaches, as well as this quarterback trainers. And we just talk all things quarterbacks, pretty much anything related to the quarterback position. It's fair game here. But today we're going to hit on a few games. We're going to talk Texas and Alabama. We're going to preview what each quarterback needs to do. We're going to talk about Miami and Texas A&M, what each team needs to do. Then we're going to talk about Shedeur Sanders because we got to against Nebraska, what he needs to do. Then we're going to hit on a bunch of other quarterbacks as well. But if you have any quarterback requests, if you're watching this, I don't think we have too many in the watching right now, but we'll get a few trickling in. If you have any quarterback requests or any topics you want to talk about, let us know in the chat below. The recap video we did a few days ago was good, interactive. We were able to talk several different quarterbacks and several different topics. But with that said, let's go ahead and dive right into it. Enough of the intro stuff. Let's go ahead and dive right into it. Let's go ahead and talk about Quinn Ewers, what we feel like he needs to do against Alabama's defense and ways he can improve and attack the defense and build off what he did against Rice, right? And if you have any thoughts in this game, let us know in the comments or the chats below. Will Rogers, absolutely. Yep, playing a big game against Arizona. We'll definitely talk some Will Rogers. We definitely have him on the list. But let's talk Quinn Ewers. Let's go ahead and talk Quinn Ewers. Oh, I'm sorry. People can't see that comment. Will Rogers by Pickle Sports. Excuse me, guys. I'm still getting used to this live stuff. Not very good at it yet. So just bear with me. But Will Rogers. You know what? Pickle Sports. Let's go ahead and talk Will Rogers just because we only have a few people in the chat. So let's go ahead and talk about Will Rogers and just kind of preview that game because I think this is the first. I know Mississippi State struggled last week. It was an FCS opponent, I believe. But now with Arizona coming up, this is like the first time you can actually kind of maybe judge their offense, right? You can go ahead and judge their offense. Let's see. I'm here for Shedeur. Love that. We're definitely talking Shedeur coming up in a few minutes. But yeah, Will Rogers. I think this is the first time you can actually judge that offense, the new offense, and what they're going up against. It's funny, right? Because they're going up against Arizona, who has maybe a similar offense that Mississippi State used to run last year or used to run previously with Will Rogers. So I still think Will's a stud. All these numbers are coming up that people are talking about how he struggled with the game last week. And, if you just judge things off Twitter, you would think, oh my gosh, like this guy getting benched. But I think Rogers is a stud. I think you adjust to the new system that he's in. And this is the first real test against Arizona. We're definitely going to find out some things. So maybe with fans getting upset at Rogers last week, maybe it's valid, or maybe it was overreaction, and now he can really come out. Because again, remember when the team they were playing last week, it slips my mind. Maybe you can go ahead and tell me, Pickle Sports, but I believe it was FCS opponent, so they're probably keeping things pretty vanilla. So you can probably expect them to open up things a bit more against Arizona and maybe show a little bit more of what they have. Okay, so let's dive back into Quinn Ewers and Alabama. If you look just at the Alabama defense, I don't think you know exactly what to necessarily expect, except they're probably going to be pretty good. They didn't show much against Middle Tennessee State. There wasn't a real need to. But if you're Quinn Ewers, if you are wanting to have success against Bama, I think it comes down to 3 main keys. I think number one, if you've kept up with this game or kept up with what's going on in Austin, Texas, is you have to hit some vertical shots. You have to take some shots deep and hit some vertical shots. It's been documented he was 0 of 6 of 20-plus yards down the field, and Sark came out and said, hey, that wasn't all on Ewers, right? He talked about receivers maybe not running the right routes or not running the routes appropriately, how they had them coached. Again, so we're not in the offensive meetings. We're not in the coaching meeting, so we don't know necessarily whose fault it was. But regardless if it was Quinn's fault or receiver's fault, they were still 0 of 6. You're going to need Southeastern Louisiana. Thank you, Pickle Sports. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry about interrupting. But yeah, you're gonna need to hit those shots, regardless whose fault it was, to beat Alabama. I think. Let's see. I think yours isn't that accurate. Yeah, and I'm gonna go through some of the stats. I like yours. I think the potential is definitely there, but if you looked at the game against Rice, yeah, you're definitely right. There were definitely some struggles, and downfield being 0 of 6. So he was 19 of 31 with 1 drop. From the outside looking in, you're like, okay, that's not a bad box score. That's a pretty good box score, right? But 0 of 6 with 20 yards downfield, and 6 of his completions were screens. So he was 6 of 6 in screens. If you take away those screens, he was only 13 of 25. So you're right. The accuracy was still a question against Rice. However, I'm not too. It's Rice, right? So I'm not too concerned. I think he's able to still kind of get up against Alabama, right? Again, it was Rice. He's able to get up against Alabama. He's still a kid, so it's easier to get up against a school like Bama than Rice. But I think he's going to have to hit some shots deep. I think you're going to have medium type throws, some intermediate type throws between 10 and 19 yards. That was something he did really well on. That was something the crowd is itching for. Yeah, they definitely are. But the intermediate throws were something that he did really well on. He was 6 of 8 on the intermediate throws for 100 yards and a touchdown. So if you're Quinn Ewers, you need to get into that rhythm, hit some intermediate throws, and then take some vertical shots deep. And you also need to be prepared for mixed looks. I don't know if Bama's going to bring pressure. I don't know if Bama's going to sit back in the pocket. Quinn actually did good against the blitz. Now, just because the blitz came doesn't mean they got pressure, but Quinn was 12 of 15 against the blitz. Whenever Rice didn't blitz, he was 7 of 16 when they were dropping 7 or 8 guys back into coverage. So you might see Bama do that, and they might say, "Hey, Quinn, you're going to have to pick us apart. You're going to have to find holes whenever there are 8 guys back in the secondary, right?" So you could definitely see that. So big takeaways from Quinn: you got to hit the vertical shots. You're going to have to score. You're going to have to hit vertical shots to score enough points against Alabama, and be prepared for mixed looks. You could see pressure, but I could also see Saban just dropping those guys back and say, "Hey, beat us. Read this defense. Beat us." Excuse me. But yeah, you're definitely right with that. The crowd is itching for Manning already. I think it's too soon for that. I think Quinn's good. I still think he's going to have a good season. So I still have high hopes for him, but it has to start this game. You got to do what we just talked about. Hit the vertical shots, stay within the intermediate throws as well. That can help set up those vertical shots, and then be prepared for a mixed variety of looks. Let's talk about Jalen Milroe next. Let me get a quick sip of water. I apologize. Let's talk about Jalen Milroe. Let me know your thoughts of Milroe if y'all want to, but I think the obvious statement is one, the advantage is his legs, right? Like his legs are going to be a big factor. That's probably a big reason why he is QB1 for Bama, and that's a good thing if you're Alabama. He's the best athlete on the field when he's on the field, regardless of position. So that's number one. It's a big factor. Texas is probably going to have a spy on him, right? They're probably going to drop guys into coverage. I'm sure they'll have some unique blitz packages that try to fluster him, but they're probably going to make him beat them with his arm, if that's what Texas is going to do in some way, shape, or form. Have a spy or two, drop guys into coverage, and say, "Hey, beat us." Well, if you're Milroe, I think you have that potential. I think if you watch Middle Tennessee, you saw the potential is there, right? You just have to do it consistently if you're Jalen Milroe as far as completing passes downfield. He distributed the ball throughout the whole area of the field. He was 5 of 6 outside the numbers throwing the ball, and 8 of 11 inside the numbers. He was 13 of what is that? 8, 11, 6, 11. I'm not very good at math. I think he was 13 of 18, right? 5 of those completions outside the numbers, 8 inside the numbers. So that's a pretty good ratio of completions inside and outside the numbers. So I think you're Jalen Milroe. You need to build on that, do it repeatedly. And then also, even though this is a really cliche thing to say, and you could say what I'm about to say about any quarterback to win the game, is you just don't turn the ball over. I think they're in a good position. Even if Milroe just plays average or sub or below average, if he doesn't turn the ball over, I think Bama is good enough to be in a good position to win that game, even if he doesn't play well. Just don't turn the ball over, right? So overall takeaways, legs are obviously the answer for Milroe right now. But with that said, if he can repeat what he did against Middle Tennessee. Now I know it's Middle Tennessee and Texas defense is much, much different. I get that. But if you can repeat the ability that you showed to throw the ball, because he's got plenty of talent, plenty of arm strength. If you look back and watch our video we put out earlier today about Milroe, you'll see the throw I'm talking about down the middle of the field, 50-plus yards in the air. The potential is there. He just has to repeat it. If he's able to do that, then I think that is success. Let's see. I like Jalen. I don't think he's accurate either. He may get better. Yeah, you're definitely right. And I think let's see. Thank you for the comments. This is great. Both QBs will be tested if they have to become a passer. Absolutely. And I think whoever becomes that better passer probably ends up winning the game. Okay, so let's move on because we do have Shedeur. Don't worry, we'll get into Shedeur, but I do want to talk about Miami and Texas A&M. I do want to talk about both those quarterbacks. This is a fascinating game as well. This is a game that could really dictate the direction for both these teams, or it could not have any real impact, and both these teams could be pretty damn good even if they lose this game. Let's talk Connor Wigman first, because he's a guy who I think has a world of potential and a ton of talent. And if he's able to be unleashed like the A&M fans are wanting him to be, then he could be one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. Too soon to say that right now, but that might start getting traction if they start performing well. So Connor Wigman, Texas A&M. Now, they played New Mexico last week, so, take that with a grain of salt. But he was able to throw the ball all over the field. Every touchdown came against the blitz. That tells me that he's doing a good job finding where space is. Now, this is going to be much different facing Miami than New Mexico. It's going to be much tougher. But he was able to distribute the ball all over the field, outside the hashes, middle. He had a touchdown in every part of the field, meaning he had a touchdown outside the left hashes, a touchdown outside the right hashes, and a touchdown to the middle of the field. I think he had 5 touchdowns. I might be wrong about that, but regardless. Had a touchdown in every part of the field. Every touchdown came against the blitz. And he was also 4 of 6 for passes 20-plus yards downfield. So that tells me that right there is a refreshing sound for A&M fans, knowing that they were taking vertical shots, knowing they were pushing the ball downfield. So I think you're probably going to have to do that to beat Miami. So I think if you're Wigman, distribute the ball again and attack vertically. You still don't know probably what you're going to have with Miami's defense. You know it's going to be a lot better than New Mexico, but I don't think they showed much against Miami, Ohio last week. So, again, don't know exactly what their defense is going to show, but you know it's going to be tougher than New Mexico. But if you can push the ball downfield and distribute the ball the whole field, causing Miami to have to cover the whole field, you'll be in a good position. I think if they're able to do that, then I think they're able to win the game. All right, let's talk Tyler Van Dyke. I like the QB breakdown you do. It's inside for a bet. Thank you. I appreciate that. I like to put in some bets myself. So, but yeah, thank you. I do appreciate that. Okay, so let's talk Tyler Van Dyke, quarterback, Miami. Okay, so if you look from the outside looking in, 17 and 22, efficient. Didn't need to do much against Miami, Ohio. Didn't really push the ball downfield. I think his yards per attempt were in the 7-ish range, maybe, if I remember correctly. Didn't really need to do much against Miami, Ohio. That's great. They kept it vanilla. Now, one thing that he did really good on was he was 10 of 12 inside the numbers. Really, really good on, right? But if you're Texas A&M, you're probably going to, make him beat you outside the numbers. You're probably going to give him some throws outside the numbers, some long throws. Say, hey, we're taking away the middle of the field. So you go ahead and see if you can beat us outside the numbers. At least that's what I would do. But I'm just some random person on YouTube talking, so take that with a grain of salt. But I think number one for Van Dyke to be successful against A&M, be successful on throws outside the numbers. I think that's going to open up more offensive plays, right? That's going to open up more underneath type stuff. It's going to open up the Miami offense as a whole. If he can showcase the ability to make those type of throws, and that's going to force the A&M defense to cover the whole field. So I think that's number one. Number two, be good versus the blitz. He wasn't blitzed much against Miami, Ohio, but when he was really good. He was 4 or 5 versus the blitz. Again, the blitz doesn't mean pressure. The blitz just means they were bringing more guys than they had on the line of scrimmage. So you want to be good against the blitz again, and you want to be good against pressure as well, obviously. But if you're good against the blitz, that's going to force A&M to kind of stay back a little bit, right? Number 3, you got to hit a deep shot or two. He only had 2 attempts of 20 yards downfield or more against Miami, Ohio, and they were 0 for 2. I take that with a grain of salt. Not a big deal, right? You didn't need to push the ball downfield to beat Miami, Ohio. But to beat Texas A&M, I think you're going to have to. So it's kind of similar keys for Wigman and Van Dyke, in my opinion. But if you're Tyler Van Dyke, push the ball downfield. You're going to have to do that a bit more against the Aggies. Be good against the blitz. Then be successful in throws outside the numbers, especially early in the game. That's really going to, I think, open up some plays for Tyler Van Dyke in the Miami offense. All right, let's get into Shedeur Sanders, the quarterback that everyone's talking about. And if you watched any of our videos in the past, you see we probably put out 3-4 film breakdowns of Shedeur before the season even started, months back. So if you're interested in just more Shedeur content, we do have that if you want to go check that out. But Shedeur Sanders, let's get into this. And I didn't really break down Nebraska quarterback Jeff Sims. We can talk about him as well if y'all have any interest in that. But Shedeur Sanders, what do we need to do? Or not we. What does he need to do to have success against Nebraska? what can you expect from Nebraska's defense? I think Nebraska's defense is going to be pretty salty. I think they're going to be very well coached with Coach Rule. Even though the first game they lost, the defense played great. The defense gave up under 200 yards passing with like 44 attempts. That's a really, really good rate. That's a really, really good number. I think the quarterback from Minnesota, I can't pronounce his last name, I apologize, but it was like 4.5 yards per attempt, right? So really good in coverage. No big plays happen. I think there's some areas that Sanders can attack that defense, though. And remember, I don't think this is going to be nearly as easy for Sanders in Colorado as it was against TCU. I think this is a good, really well coached defense. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think in number one, if you're Sanders and you're Colorado, you find the matchup. You got athletes all over the field. You got really, really good receivers to throw to. You had 4 receivers, including a back that had over 100 yards against TCU. So in my mindset, you're going to have a mismatch every play. It's about finding that mismatch because it might be receiver X one play, it might be receiver Z the next play. I think personnel dependent, yes, but also what is the play and what does the play call for the receiver to do? So I think finding the mismatch is number one. You find the mismatch, you hit on it. And Shedeur Sanders is so smart. And all the breakdowns that we've done, we just talk about his IQ, his ability to read defense. So he's probably going to be thinking the same thing. He's going to know the mismatch, right? But find the mismatch. Number two, middle of the field. I think you can attack the middle of the field. Minnesota had not a lot of success passing, but the success they did have was to some slot guys and to some tight ends. So I think you can find the mismatch in the middle of the field. Also, Sanders had 410 yards of his 510 yards came attacking middle of the field or came inside the numbers, right? So, yeah, there's some outside-ish throws, but still middle of the field, inside the numbers. So, again, 410 yards for Shedeur Sanders of the 510 yards against TCU came middle of the field and 3 touchdowns against TCU. So obviously Nebraska knows that. Obviously Nebraska is going to try to defend that and probably try to force Sanders to make some throws outside the hash or outside the numbers, which is great. Go ahead and do that. But I still think you can attack the middle of the field, especially with the offense Sean Lewis runs. And number 3, use play action again. That's kind of an obvious statement with Sean Lewis's offense. Even the plays that have no intention to run, you're still a lot of times given a fake little handoff, right? So I think you use play action again. Against TCU, Sanders was 14 of 15 against play action against TCU. And so you combine that, the success he had off play action, the success he had throwing middle of the field, the success that Lewis had running his offense with Sanders, and I think that could be a good way to attack Nebraska. Let's see. I like the breakdown. Nebraska running back a QB. Yeah, I do like Sims. I like rooting for Sims. Doncast talking about Jeff Sims being more running back than quarterback. But as of now, you're right. But he's one of the best athletes on the field. Let's see. You also say, I think the game will be close until the second half. I think it just depends on Nebraska's offense. I think Nebraska's defense is going to keep them in this game. I still think Colorado's going to have success offensively, but we'll see. I'm excited for it. But yeah, so I think the keys for Sanders and the keys, the overall takeaway to beat Nebraska or to attack Nebraska, find the matchup, find the mismatch, right? What matchup do you like best? It's always going to be Hunter, right? Of course, right? But if they're double teaming, if they shade a safety over, there's going to be a mismatch somewhere else. You have a mismatch, find the mismatch. Use the middle of the field again, and then use play action to your advantage. I think those are 3 keys for Sanders to have success against Nebraska. If you have anything else to add with Sanders, let us know. But we'll be real excited for it. It's obviously must-watch TV. But yeah, so these are the 3 games I wanted to do a deep dive-ish on, right? So we had Colorado, Nebraska, we just talked about Texas and Alabama and what each quarterback needs to do. And then, of course, we talked about Miami and Texas A&M as well. So I want to dive through some more quarterbacks, dive through some more games that are coming up on the slate. But again, if y'all have any quarterback requests or just any topics or anything you want to talk about, let us know. We'll get to it and talk about it, or any questions in general. Again, we put out quarterback content on a weekly basis, so just a big quarterback hub. If it's related to the quarterback position, it's all fair game here. So let's keep moving on. Again, let us know what y'all want to talk about next. I think some of the quarterback battles, some of the quarterback stuff that I'm interested in, like Ohio State, we're not going to know because they play Youngstown State, right? So I don't think if McCord has a big game, it's like, who cares? If Devin Brown gets more playing time, it's almost like, who cares, right? Let's keep moving on. Okay, Notre Dame and NC State. I think this could be an underrated one. This is Sam Hartman's first real test. Yeah, he had success in the games prior against Navy and I believe the FCS, but this is Hartman's first real test. So I'm excited to see Sam Hartman against NC State and then Brennan Armstrong. they were able to beat, it was UConn, right, last Thursday night, NC State, but the offense never got in rhythm. So can Armstrong get in rhythm? For Armstrong and NC State to beat Sam Hartman, they're going to have to find some rhythm. I think NC State's defense probably keeps them in the game. It's a good defense, but if Hartman goes off, then I think they can run away with it, right? So if you're Armstrong for the NC State offense, you got to find a rhythm to get in. You got to have big plays besides this when he scrambles, right? When he goes off script, if you're Armstrong. But I'm excited for that. I am excited for that game. I think we're going to learn some about that. Let's keep moving on. Again, let us know if you have any of the comments. Iowa plays Iowa State. We'll be looking forward to that one, see how Cade McNamara does against Iowa State. Also, another one, SMU, Oklahoma. Dylan Gabriel went nuts last week, right? And so did Jackson Arnold, his backup. They play SMU. SMU's gotten a lot of hype this season, moving to the ACC next year. Preston Stone at quarterback, who is a stud. This is Stone's first real test. He's had some playing time the past few years. That they blew out Louisiana Tech this past weekend. So this is Stone's first real test. Now Stone's a guy, if you're not familiar with, he's a quarterback who had offers from Texas, USC. I want to say he was the biggest recruit for SMU at a high school that SMU's ever had, at least at the time. So he's a stud. So I'm really excited to see Stone against Oklahoma. I think that could be a fun one. Again, let us know any comments below. Another kind of underrated one that I want to get to is Wisconsin and Washington State. If you haven't seen Cam Ward play for Washington State, the kid's a stud. Started out Incarnate Word 2 years ago, went crazy, and Coach Keene's offense, the now head coach at Texas State, went crazy for Incarnate Word. Had a good season last year for Washington State after he transferred. Then the opening game against Colorado State had like 450 and I don't know how many touchdowns, right? But just went nuts. And Colorado State, that was a game a lot of people are picking Colorado State to potentially pull the upset or be close, and it was a blowout. So I'm excited to see him play. And then Wisconsin, Tanner Mordecai. He had a few picks in week one, and I don't think he rated very good. Let's see if we can find where Tanner Mordecai rated with PFF. I have it pulled up. Just give me 1 second. I can't even see it in the top 50, right? So he rated somewhere lower than the top 50, which is obviously not where you want to be. But I think it's a big game for him because he didn't have a very good spring game. He struggled in the spring game through some picks, struggled week one, didn't have a great game week one. I think he had at least 1 or 2 picks. So I think he needs to have a good game to really establish himself and the offense, right? So I'm excited to see quarterbacks there. And then I'm also really excited for, like we talked about Will Rogers earlier, I am excited to see him against Arizona and see the new offense kind of hopefully gel more. Again, I think Will Rogers is one of the most accurate quarterbacks in all of college football, and now we're going to really find out, was it the offense, why he was accurate? Is it him? Well, I think it was both. I think he was really good throwing the football. I think he was really accurate, and the offense, of course, helped, right? But I still think he can take that accuracy within this new offense. I'm excited to see him against Arizona this week as well. A few other late games. Peyton Thorne against Cal, right? Auburn against Cal. Looking forward to see how Peyton Thorne does against the first big test. And, looking forward to see Ben Finley play for Cal. Ben Finley had a huge game for Cal against UNT, the former NC State backup. I think he had started 2 maybe at NC State. He definitely got some playing time, transferred to Cal. Had a really good game against UNT. Had another quarterback that played. I don't know if he got hurt or what the deal is, but Finley had a good game. I'm excited to see Peyton Thorne and Auburn play against Cal, play against a Power 5 opponent. Oklahoma State, Arizona State. Questions for Oklahoma State's quarterback. I still think there are questions. I think they played 3 quarterbacks last week, and they won 27-13 against, was it FCS or was this a lower FBS? I forget who it was against. But still, questions about that. And then it's going to be fun to see Rashada against Oklahoma State in his first Power 5 matchup, first FBS matchup. It's going to be fun to see Rashada play against Oklahoma State, the quarterback for Arizona State. All right, last game we'll talk about. And then, actually, there's 2 games. I almost missed one. Let's actually hit on Ole Miss and Tulane. This is a game I'm really excited for. Of course, you got Ole Miss and Jackson Dart named the starting quarterback, right? I know there's a 3-way competition. You got Dart, so it's exciting to see him against Tulane, but I'm more excited for Tulane and Michael Pratt. Michael Pratt was the number 1 ranked quarterback in PFF, 14 of 15, 4 touchdowns, 293 yards. Did a fantastic job in every category that you could possibly do a good job in, right? So I think he was 4-4 for 20 for balls thrown 20 yards downfield or more. So this did a really good job overall, attack vertically. So for them to beat Ole Miss, it's probably going to be a high-scoring game, or at least he's going to have to make some big plays for them to beat Ole Miss. That should be a really fun one. All right, so we'll finish this up. Texas State, UTSA. Again, there's other games on. If anyone's in here watching, like, Vanderbilt, Wake Forest, looking forward to it. Like Mitch Griffiths, think he's a stud. He's been on the show. He's great. Utah, Baylor. Sawyer Robertson is taking over, it looks like. Blake Shapen is hurt for Baylor. You got Utah's Cam Rising back. I don't know. They're going to go the 2-quarterback system, maybe. So you got some underrated games like that. Purdue, Virginia Tech. Hudson Card against Grant Wells. Can Card have another good game? I thought he did well last week against Fresno State. He wasn't the reason why they lost. And Grant Wells had some touchdowns last week and didn't turn the ball over. So can he do that again? So there's some good underrated games like that are on the schedule here. But let's talk Texas State and UTSA. I'm excited for that one, just being down here in Texas. We got connections at both schools in a few different ways, so we'll be excited for that one. I think you have, of course, Frank Harris, who a lot of people probably know about. If you haven't watched him play yet, this is going to be a game to watch. This is always a fun game, UTSA and Texas State. Frank Harris coming off a game that he's not pleased with, a game that they lost to U of H, a game that, he just wasn't himself, essentially, right? Used to Frank Harris making crazy plays, pushing the ball downfield. He one of the better quarterbacks in college football. So you're looking for him to bounce back. Then TJ Finley for Texas State, he's been one of the most talked about quarterbacks this week, and rightfully so. He was one of the highest graded quarterbacks according to PFF as well. Coming off the game against Baylor, he was 22 of 30, something like that, with 4 TDs, 296 yards. Did really, really good against the blitz. Was really, really good under pressure. I think he was 7 of 9 for $144 and a touchdown. So can he repeat and replicate the same performance that he had against Baylor, against UTSA? I think right now Texas State is almost a 2-touchdown underdog, maybe 13 points, something like that. But definitely really excited to watch that game down here in Texas. So yeah, I think that's all we got for the quarterback previews. Again, if you like this type of content, we put this content out weekly. We have 2 live shows. We do a quarterback recap and then do a quarterback preview. Then we have all our mini breakdowns and previews that we put out throughout the week as well. We'll continue the podcast, have some guests on, but we'll probably pick that up a bit more after the season. Let's see. What's up? Let's see. Oh, no smoke. Thank you. What's up? Like your work. Should be a great week of football, college, NFL. Absolutely, man. It absolutely should. Thank you. Thank you for the kind words. Thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. It is appreciated. Just subscribed. Awesome. Thank you, man. I do appreciate that sincerely. Hopefully we put out some good work that you enjoy. Before I get off, are you a fan of a certain college team, fan of a quarterback? Anyone you want to talk about before we get out? Let's see. Give you a second to respond. I think you left. Okay. Awesome. But anyways, always thank you for watching sincerely. There's a bunch of really good college football content creators out there. So we thank you for watching, for tuning in, for spending some time with us. I am down in Miami. Tyler Van Dyke. Awesome, dude. No smoke. Okay. Yeah, it's just us. So we can talk. I hit on Van Dyke earlier in the show. So let's go ahead and just hit on him real quick just because it's just us. And, if people want to log out when they're watching this, then they can. But yeah, Van Dyke, I think the keys for him against Texas A&M, it comes down to a few things. I think you're going to have to push the ball vertically downfield to beat A&M. They didn't do that much last week against Miami, Ohio, because he didn't need to, right? I think he had 2 attempts of more than 20 yards, and you were 0 for 2. Not a big deal, Miami, Ohio, right? He beat them. Another thing, you were 10 of 12 passing inside the numbers. That's really, really good. I think he was 17 of 22 overall, but 10 of 12 passing inside the numbers. So if I'm the Aggie defense, I'm going to try to force him to throw the ball outside the numbers, outside the hash. So I'm going to try to take away some of those middle of the field type throws and force him to beat me. So if you're Van Dyke, you want to come out and you want to hit some of those outside the numbers type throws early. If you can hit those long type throws early, that's going to force A&M's defense to have to cover the whole field. After that, you maybe have a bit more flexibility of what you want to run. You have a bit more openness of what you want to run. I went to the game. Run game was working. It was raining. Yep, that's a good point too. It was raining, so that's another point. And you just didn't need to push the ball downfield against Miami, Ohio. Not a big deal. I think it's A&M. I think against A&M, you will probably have to. I think they're saving the deep stuff for A&M. They have the wide receivers for sure. I agree. I think Wigman and A&M. And after we're done with this, no smoke. If you want to go back and watch maybe minute 7 or 8, we started talking Miami and A&M. But we did a kind of a decent little deep dive on that. If you want to go back and watch that. But yeah, I think Van Dyke, it comes down to be good against the blitz. He was good against the blitz against Miami, Ohio. A&M's probably going to have a bit more intense pass rush, I think it's safe to say, but be good against the blitz. Attack vertically or complete a deep shot or 2, and then throw the ball outside the numbers and really spread the field. But yeah, that's the game. Again, I think maybe minute 7 or 8, you can go back and watch that. But always, everyone, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Please consider liking, subscribing, all that YouTube stuff. It really does help the channel, and we're going to try to keep putting out good content. And feel free to reach out on Twitter at QB Spotlight if you have any requests or any football stuff. But with that said, we thank you all for tuning in. We'll see y'all next time. Peace.